Make sure you enter today's Fox Bet Super 6 NBA contest for a chance to win $25,000. Download the Fox Bet Super 6 app and pick the outcome of 6 of today's NBA games for your chance to win. It's completely free to play.
I don't know how anybody wins betting NBA regular season this year with all the players taking off because of the condensed schedule. Now, playoffs I get because you're getting everybody wants to win, all the stars play. This year's regular season, if you can win betting the NBA, God love you. Because
I'm sure someone's figured it out.
I'm sure they have. But it has been, there are games where you get these late scratches this year. What are you going to do? Bill Romanowski played in the NFL. This is a long time for a linebacker to play. 16 years. And he got 4-time Super Bowl champ. Ton of playoff games. Niners, he won a couple Super Bowls. And Broncos. Also has a company, nutrition53.com. He's got a product, Lean One, which I've taken before. It's great. Tastes great. Nutrition53.com. Bill Romanowski is now joining us live. So you would work with you know the Raiders really well. You know their culture. You know the team. You'd worked with them a couple years ago, Bill. And the other day an article came out, and it had Gruden as the lowest rated GM, Gruden and Mayock. And my belief is Jon is a good football coach. He should stay away from personnel because he falls in love with players. And all the good GMs I've known are always like, you got to get unemotional. Your takeaway on my belief that Gruden doesn't do well at the drafting thing because he's like a teenage boy. He falls in love every weekend with somebody different.
You know, you fall in love. But also, Colin, he falls out of love just as quickly as he falls in love with guys. And that, can be a problem too, especially with young guys.
Is there a move he's made you didn't like, that you just think you look back and go, gosh, I wouldn't have done that?
Yes. The one that stands out to me is Khalil Mack. When you have the best pass rusher in the league on your team and you get rid of him for a couple first-round draft picks, and then you don't hit on those first-round draft picks, that's a disaster for your football team.
Well, Bill, as you well know, this draft, half the NFL is undrafted. You went to a smaller school, so you don't really know outside of your top 7, 8 picks. There's a lot of guessing here. In your career, we got a draft coming up next week.
Yeah.
How many days did it take you in your 16 years to be able, how many practices that you would watch a draft pick play and know dude's got it or can't play a lick?
You can usually know the first day.
Wow.
I could. You just see the way they react. You see their speed. You see their mind. And then you see, do they have natural ability just to play the game? So there's been a lot of physical specimens I've seen over the years that couldn't think their way out of a cardboard box.
Right.
And they couldn't make plays because they couldn't react, and it just wasn't natural for them.
It's interesting. Jimmy Johnson was on my show the other day, the Hall of Fame coach, and I said, what was the first thing you look at? And he said intelligence. He goes, if you can't line up in the right spot, there's nothing I can do for you. When you look, now, could I make the argument that players now, the coaching is so good in high school and all this 7-on-7 stuff, that happened. Most guys now, as your career aged, were players a little more in tune intellectually later than early, or how did that land?
I felt like guys came in, for the most part, pretty prepared. And, I think what goes on in college nowadays, from the way they're developed, because as you said, they're lifting weights and running, and their strength and conditioning performance in high school now is leaps and bounds ahead of what it was back when I was in high school. It was prehistoric back then. So then they get to the college programs, and these college programs on some level are better than professional programs. So you kind of know. And then it's, hey, can they play football? Can they line up, think, react, and play and hit and strike and do what you have to do to play the game of football? Are they willing to violent place in their head, a dark place? I had to go to a dark place in my head, and that's where you have to go in the game of football.
You know, Jimmy Johnson also said this. He goes, when you go to a great program like Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama, Bill, those are so close to the NFL in terms of weight conditioning and nutrition. Those are like almost NFL teams. That the player coming out of a big program like that, what you see in college, it's kind of what you get. But if you take a guy out of Wyoming, if you take Trey Lance out of North Dakota State, Jimmy's like, those kids have not had as good a coaching generally or as good a coordinators. They have a huge ceiling often. They just, they played at a place that barely even had a training table. Go back to your career. You were a guy that didn't go to a massive Alabama. In your career, did small school guys had a higher ceiling than big school guys?
You know what I think it comes down to? I know for me, it was just hard work and desire. When I got to the San Francisco 49ers, I was around some of the best football players to ever play in the NFL. When you talk Ronnie Lott, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, I can go on and on. It was my work ethic and my desire to be great that allowed me to play as long as I played. And I could play football. And then now it came down to, hey, I got to stay strong, I got to stay healthy, and I got to be able to take the field to help our team win. So you're right, the upside. But then here's another thing, Colin, that I think that teams sometimes don't do a very good job at is finding the guy that fits in the system that they run.
Yeah.
And, and it seems like the Patriots do that really well. They really, it's like they bring in guys that they know will fit in their system, where other teams are like, well, let's put the round peg in a square hole. And a lot of times that doesn't work. The Bay Area well. The Niners have moved up to number 3. So they're taking a quarterback. You wouldn't move up to 3 to take a receiver. You wouldn't. So Garoppolo just can't stay healthy. In fact, of the last 4 years, he's been hurt